Most people believe Alex Eala won that match because of her aggressive forehand or her relentless stamina. But the truth is much more unsettling. The Roman crowd did not fall silent because of a winning shot. They fell silent because they felt betrayed by the very game they thought they understood. Why would a stadium full of die-hard Italian tennis fans, people who have lived and breathed clay court grit for generations, suddenly stop cheering for the hometown favorite? Why would they just stare in total disbelief at a young star from the Philippines? It was not just a victory, it was a total breakdown of expectations. Within the first minutes of this match, the atmosphere was electric, but by the middle of the second set, something happened that left the experts speechless. There is a specific action Alex took, a move so subtle that the broadcast commentators completely missed it, yet it changed everything. If you watch the faces in the front row, you can see the exact moment the energy in the Eternal City shifted from hostility to a haunting, quiet respect. This was not a lucky break or a momentum swing. It was a calculated, almost surgical display of something the tennis world has not seen in decades. We are not talking about a fast serve or a deep return. We are talking about a psychological shift that made a veteran opponent look like a confused amateur in her own backyard. Every person in that stadium came to see a masterclass in Italian tennis. But they left wondering if they had just witnessed the birth of a new era. What did Alex Eala actually do that made the most knowledgeable tennis fans in the world question their own eyes? It was a gesture of defiance, a technical anomaly that breaks every rule taught in the elite academies of Europe. But before we reveal that specific moment, you have to understand the sheer weight of the pressure cooker that is the Foro Italico. To understand the weight of that moment, you have to realize that Rome is not just another stop on the tour. It is a place where careers go to die under the weight of the red clay. To see how she survived, we have to look at the impossible standard she was forced to meet before she even stepped onto the court. Rome is a city of ghosts and gladiators. When you walk onto the red clay of the Foro Italico, you are walking into a history that demands perfection. This is a WTA 1000 event. For those who do not follow the professional tour closely, that means it is just one step below a Grand Slam. The points are massive, the prize money is life-changing, and the pressure is enough to crush even the most seasoned veterans. But for Alex Eala, the stakes were even higher than a simple ranking point. She was not just playing for her own career. She was carrying the massive hopes of a nation of 110 million people who have been waiting for a tennis superstar to call their own for a very long time. Every match she plays is broadcast across islands and cities, creating a collective breath that stops whenever the ball hits the net. At just 19 years old, most players are still trying to find their rhythm on the difficult pro circuit. They are fighting for wild cards and hoping to survive the first round without being embarrassed. But Alex is different. She comes from the prestigious Rafael Nadal Academy in Spain, which means she was raised with a specific set of values: suffering, resilience, and an obsession with the red clay. She has spent thousands of hours sliding on these surfaces under the hot sun, learning that the dirt is not your enemy, but a partner in the struggle. Yet, even with that elite training, nothing can prepare you for the sheer hostility of a Roman crowd when you are playing against one of their own local favorites. Italian fans do not just watch tennis. They participate in it. They whistle, they shout, they stamp their feet, and they use every psychological trick in the book to get under your skin. Think about the mental fortitude required to stand in the middle of that suffocating heat, surrounded by thousands of people who want to see you fail. You are thousands of miles away from your home in the Philippines. You are young, you are the underdog, and every mistake you make is met with a deafening roar of approval from the partisan stands. Most young players fold under that weight. Their feet get heavy on the slippery clay. Their serves start to get shaky. Their vision narrows as the panic sets in. But Alex knew that if she could survive this specific test, she could survive anything the tour had to throw at her. She was fighting against a top-tier opponent and a stadium full of people who had already written the script for her inevitable defeat. The statistics were certainly not in her favor. Historically, Young Asian players have struggled with the transition to the slow, heavy, and exhausting courts of Europe. It requires a completely different kind of movement compared to the hard courts of North America. It is a complex dance of sliding, recovery, and infinite patience. If you hit the ball too hard, the thick clay simply swallows the power. If you hit it too soft, you are punished immediately. It is a game of physical chess played at 100 miles per hour. Alex was facing a veteran who knew every inch and every bounce of this surface. On paper, this was supposed to be a quick and painful lesson for the teenager. But as the match progressed, the numbers started to shift in a way that no one expected. The win percentage of Alex on her first serves began to climb. The unforced errors dropped to almost zero. The impossible was slowly starting to feel inevitable. It is that feeling of seeing someone overcome the impossible that makes us love this sport so much. We have all been the underdog in our own lives, fighting against a crowd of doubters that does not believe in us. If you can see yourself in the struggle of this young star, and you are rooting for her to break through that glass ceiling today, then you are part of this journey too. Every person who shares in this moment of history helps build the momentum that Alex feels on that court. We are following every step of this rise together. So stay tuned as we dive into the tactical shift that actually broke the spirit of the Roman faithful. The energy in the air was changing. You could feel it through the television screen. The whistles were getting quieter. The murmurs were getting louder. People were looking at their tournament programs, double-checking the name of this girl who refused to miss a single shot. But even as she climbed back into the match, no one was ready for the tactical masterstroke she was about to unveil to the world. To understand the sheer genius of what happened next, we have to look at the feet of the young champion, because while everyone was watching the yellow ball, the real battle was being won in the red dirt. And the next move she made is what left Italy in total shock. The red clay of Rome is a deceptive surface. It looks soft, but it is actually a grinding machine designed to expose every single flaw in your technique. In the beginning of this opening match, Alex Eala seemed to be falling right into the trap that has claimed hundreds of talented players before her. She was playing too far back, way beyond the baseline, where the heavy Italian topspin had all the time in the world to kick up and push her even further out of position. From that distance, every shot feels like a mountain you have to climb. You are running twice as much as your opponent just to keep the ball in play, and in the heat of a Roman afternoon, that is a recipe for physical exhaustion. The crowd saw this and they were satisfied. They thought they were watching a typical, defensive baseline player who would eventually run out of gas and fade away under the pressure. But as the match progressed into the second set, the geometry of the entire court began to change in a way that defied the usual logic of the dirt. Why did Alex suddenly decide to step 2 meters inside the baseline during the most high-stakes moments of the game? This is where the mystery really starts to deepen for the technical analysts watching from the stands. On clay, if you step forward, you are taking away your own reaction time. You are choosing to deal with a ball that is bouncing high and heavy right in your strike zone before it has a chance to lose its energy. It is a high-risk, high-reward strategy that usually only the top 5 players in the world can execute with any consistency. But there she was, a teenager from the Philippines, standing her ground against a barrage of shots that should have pushed her back to the fence. Every time her opponent hit a deep ball, Alex did not retreat. She moved forward. She was taking the ball on the rise, cutting off the angles, and forcing her opponent to run side to side like a frantic shadow. Consider the long rally at 3 games all in the second set. It was a grueling 24-shot exchange that had everyone in the stadium on their feet. Her opponent was hitting the ball with massive amounts of spin, the kind of shots that usually force a player to lob the ball back defensively. But Alex was doing something different with her ball striking. She was flattening out her shots just enough to pierce through the heavy air of Rome while still maintaining the control needed to keep the ball within the lines. How can someone so young have the hand-eye coordination to pull that off under such extreme tension? The experts in the commentary booth were scrambling to find the right words. They kept looking at the feet of Alex, waiting for a slip or a stumble that never came. Her sliding was not just a way to stop, it was a way to accelerate into the next shot. Each example of her brilliance only added another layer to the confusion of the Italian fans. In a typical match, when a player gets tired, their technique is the first thing to go. Their feet get lazy and their shots get shorter. But for Alex, the opposite was happening. The longer the match went, the more precise her game became. She was hitting lines with the surgical accuracy of a veteran who has been on the tour for 15 years. Her opponent began to look across the net, not with confidence, but with a growing sense of dread. Every winner she tried to hit was coming back with interest. Every drop shot she attempted was read perfectly by Alex, who seemed to be a step ahead of the play before the ball even left the strings. Have you ever seen a player who seems to be playing in slow motion while everyone else is rushing? That was the feeling developing on the center court. The pace of the match was no longer being dictated by the veteran Italian. It was being controlled by the girl from the Philippines. But even as she dominated the physical rallies, a new problem was emerging, one that threatened to derail everything she had built. In tennis, when you start playing too perfectly, you often hit a wall of mental fatigue. You start to realize how close you are to the finish line, and that is when the nerves usually kick in. The pressure was building to a breaking point, and the crowd was waiting for that one moment where the teenager would finally crack under the weight of her own ambition. The mystery was no longer just about her technique. It was about her internal hardware. Is it possible for a human being to maintain this level of focus without making a single mental error? The technical analysts were looking at the data, and it simply did not make sense. Her heart rate was steady, her movement was fluid, and her eyes never left the ball. Yet, the problem was that she was playing against a crowd that was beginning to realize their favorite was losing. The atmosphere was becoming toxic, and the noise was starting to reach a level that could shatter the concentration of a statue. As she prepared to serve for the set, the entire stadium seemed to lean in, waiting for the inevitable collapse that comes when a young player realizes they are about to beat a giant. The situation had become so tense that it felt like the air itself had run out of oxygen. And for the first time in the match, Alex Eala looked like she was finally out of answers. Wait, let us stop right there. Because if you think this was just about a teenager having a good day at the office, you are missing the entire point of what makes Alex Eala a generational talent. Everyone assumes that she won because she was faster or younger or simply more determined. But that is a surface-level observation that ignores the psychological heist she was actually pulling off on that red clay. The real twist? She was never playing the tennis match everyone else was watching. While the crowd was trying to break her spirit with their whistles and their shouts, Alex was actually using that noise as a trigger. Most players see a hostile stadium as a threat, but she saw it as a metronome. She was timing her breathing to the rhythm of their boos. She was turning their negative energy into her own personal fuel cell. This was not just about tennis. It was about emotional alchemy. The assumptions we make about young players from the Philippines or from any emerging tennis nation are usually rooted in a certain kind of condescension. We expect them to be gritty. We expect them to be hard workers. But we rarely expect them to be the smartest person in the room. And that is exactly where Italy got it wrong. They thought they were dealing with a fighter, but they were actually dealing with a grandmaster who had already seen 20 moves ahead. At the most critical juncture of the match, when any other player would have played it safe and hit a deep ball down the middle, Alex did the unthinkable. She hit a drop shot that was so delicate, so perfectly disguised, and so incredibly risky that it felt like a slap in the face to the entire Italian tennis tradition. It was a move that said, I am not just here to survive you, I am here to outclass you. Before we look at the massive fallout of that single shot, I have to ask, what do you think about that level of ice in her veins? Do you think that kind of mental toughness is something you are born with? Or is it something she forged in those long, painful hours at the Nadal Academy? I would love to hear your perspective in the comments, because this is the kind of debate that keeps tennis fans up at night. This moment of defiance is what truly defines the new era of Alex Eala. It was the moment she stopped being the girl from the Philippines who was just happy to be at the Foro Italico and became the predator that the WTA Tour has been fearing. This action was a direct reflection of the philosophy taught by her mentors, the idea that you must suffer to succeed. But Alex added a layer of her own, the idea that you can suffer with a smile on your face and a dagger in your hand. She did not just win a point, she reconditioned the entire stadium. The fans who were shouting against her suddenly realized they were witnessing a level of poise that usually takes a lifetime to develop. They were not looking at a teenager anymore. They were looking at a professional who had completely mastered the art of the psychological flip. She turned the crowd into a silent witness to their own defeat. That drop shot was not just a technical choice, it was a statement of intent. It told her opponent that no matter how hard she fought, no matter how much the crowd roared, Alex was the one holding the keys to the kingdom. It was a masterclass in reinterpreting pressure. Most people think pressure is something that happens to you, but Alex proved that pressure is something you can create for others. She took the collective expectation of a nation and the collective hostility of a stadium, and she crushed them both into a single perfect point. The silence that followed that shot was the loudest thing in Rome. It was the sound of 1,000 assumptions being shattered at once. But a single moment of brilliance is just a highlight. To understand if this was a fluke or a blueprint for the future, we need to look at the cold, hard evidence that the broadcast cameras did not show you. Because while that drop shot was the heart of the revelation, the proof of her dominance is hidden in the numbers that followed. We need to look at the data that confirms this was not a lucky break, but a tactical revolution. The numbers do not lie. When you look at the data from that second set, you see a transformation that is almost impossible to explain away as luck. Alex won 78% of her first serve points. For context, the average on the professional tour is closer to 60%. She was not just putting the ball in play, she was dictating exactly where the point would end before her opponent even moved her feet. This was the mathematical evidence of her dominance. If you compare the heat map of her movement from Rome to her matches just a month ago, the difference is staggering. Earlier in the year, she spent most of her time 5 feet behind the baseline. In Rome, the tracking data shows she was practically standing on the line for over 70% of the rallies. This change in court positioning gave her a 15% increase in short ball opportunities. She was no longer waiting for the ball to come to her. She was taking the fight to the ball. This is why the veteran Italian opponent looked so exhausted. She was being forced to run 20% more distance than Alex in every single game. Even the top players like Iga Swiatek or Coco Gauff rely on their defensive skills to win on clay. But Alex Eala was producing offensive numbers that rivaled the best in the world. She hit 22 winners in that second set alone. To put that in perspective, her opponent only managed 9. The veteran was being outplayed in every single category that matters. This leads us back to that incredible moment that left the fans in silence. It was the physical proof of a mental evolution. The tracking technology confirms that the speed of her ground strokes increased by an average of 8 miles per hour in the final 3 games. Most players slow down and hit shorter balls when they are nervous. But Alex did the exact opposite. She accelerated. She was playing with a level of freedom that only comes when you have total confidence in your system. For the loyal viewers who have stayed until this moment, there is one small detail that the television cameras almost completely missed. After the match point was decided, Alex did not just celebrate with her team. She walked over to the ball boy who had been standing in the sun for 2 hours and handed him her wristband with a smile. It was a gesture of humility that shows why she is so beloved by fans around the world. She remains grounded even while her career is reaching the stars. This reveals the character behind the technique. All of these numbers and all of these moments point toward a single conclusion. This victory was not an accident or a lucky break. It was the result of a new blueprint for success that Alex has been building in secret at the Academy. Everything is starting to become clear for the fans and for the rest of the tour. The circle is closing. The world of tennis is finally seeing what happens when elite talent meets a revolutionary strategy. But as impressive as this opening victory was, the real question is what it means for the future of the sport. We have seen the proof of her power, but we have yet to see the true scale of her ambition. The final piece of the puzzle is not about the match she just won. It is about the history she is about to write. So, what did Alex Eala actually do in Rome that changed everything? She proved that you do not need to be from a traditional tennis powerhouse to own the red clay. She showed that a teenager from the Philippines can walk into the lion's den of the Foro Italico and walk out as the one holding the crown. It was not just about the points or the prize money. It was about the moment the world realized that the gap between the legends and the next generation has finally closed. Alex did not just win a match. She won the respect of a city that prides itself on never being impressed. This victory was the ultimate revelation because it stripped away the idea that geography defines destiny. When you look at the way she handled the heat, the pressure, and the hostility, you realize that we are looking at something far bigger than a single victory. This was a message sent directly to the rest of the tour. The kid is not a kid anymore. She is a strategist, a gladiator, and a symbol of what is possible when you refuse to let your environment dictate your potential. The crowd in Rome arrived expecting to see a local hero dominate, but they left talking about the girl with the iron will. As she moves closer to the grand stage of Paris, the question is no longer if she can compete with the best, but rather, how long will it take for her to beat them all? If Alex can do it in the suffocating pressure of Rome, she can do it anywhere. She has shattered the glass ceiling for an entire nation and redefined what it means to be a champion in the modern era. This is a story of a young woman who looked at the impossible and decided it was just another hurdle to slide past. The road ahead is long, and the red clay of the French Open will be even more demanding, but after what we saw in Italy, would you really bet against her? This is more than just a sports story. It is a movement that is only just beginning for every fan who has ever felt like an outsider. The real mystery now is how high this ceiling actually goes. Is she destined for the top 10 by the end of the year, or are we looking at a future world #1 in the making? If you want to be there the moment she breaks into that elite circle and see the next breakdown of her path to the top, make sure you join our community here. We are tracking every serve and every tactical shift as this history unfolds, and you do not want to be the one who missed the moment it all clicked into place. Do you think she can win a Grand Slam before she turns 21? Let me know your predictions below and stay tuned for the next chapter in this incredible journey.